Now, the next concept I'm going to talk about is based around investment bases for firms. Time and time again, one sees firms, businesses that aren't well equipped to handle the times of wintry profits falling. But time and time again, they think they're too big to fail. They consider being in such a situation unfortunate, and then they do nothing to mitigate it next time they come close to the edge. In effect, one wants to see the creation of investment bases in order to cover R&D downturn expenses and potentially increase profits, but this would be really difficult, so I would say the former. Really just covering the expenses of R&D. Now, let's say anyone actually watched this. I might get a number of people who object. They might say something along the lines of, wouldn't this just increase bureaucracy having defense firms invest? Would it not increase cost, logistical pressures and issues, particularly considering that you'll suggest property as one of the formations of this basis? Is that not really intensive for a firm to manage? And the answer is probably. Secondarily, it's not realistic for the majority of firms, they'll say. Thirdly, most firms would need to use excess for dividends, reinvestment, and R&D. So it's not actually profitable. Fourthly, it's not just civilian product diversification, and if not, then wouldn't civilian product diversification just be simpler? Fifthly, we don't need defense firms becoming investment firms anytime soon. And I agree with most of that, particularly the final objection, but the last thing we need is firms, of course, becoming investment houses. While I would agree that civilian product diversification, where possible, is to an extent a good thing, if it is genuinely positive, or even more ideally, diversification into other security-based markets, that's not entirely what this is about. Additionally, I'm not asking these firms to give up their incredible dividend or skimp on R&D, and it might increase bureaucracy, but I think it's realistic and it protects against market downturn, which actually in defense is far more common than people think. Now, in effect, the simplicity of this idea is the idea of drip investment. Firms should utilize R&D fund runoff from the utilization of funnel-based refinery matrices in order to allocate a certain portion of cost savings, achieved by the rest of the 46 points, into forms of investment. And that will dictate a number of objectives organized hierarchically. The firm should aim to own the sites of construction, shipyards, construction areas, logistics bases. In short, this doesn't make financial sense, of course, but in the long term it does, considering the process innovation that can be carried out if one owns these sites, particularly for logistics sites, which, as we've said, if you have a logistical hub, much like SpaceX, it can be hugely beneficial, particularly if you have other offices in proximity. It means innovation is far, far simpler. Now, obviously some firms already own these assets, but I think it's far more important that more do so for the full acquisition of, again, let's say, shipyards. It needs to be noted that some areas of construction or shipyards aren't up to scratch because the industrial landlords either have little incentive to promote true quality, ease and proper adaptation within the facility, or they don't have the technical insight to do so, and generally it is the latter. They don't have the technical insight to adapt the facility to be best. So the point is that a more centrally run operation would likely be more efficient, not because it's centrally run, because it's self-incentivized. And these sorts of assets are ones which can be brought up from drip investment. Also, as time goes on, it allows for better coordination of the creation of state-of-the-art facilities for modern advanced solutions and development, which is what all firms want. And that is a true asset. That's an asset that is sellable if times go into a period of downturn again. But once this is done to a greater degree, firms can focus on reinvestment, on further process innovation and actual investment. But I'll go over that at a later date. For now, I think it just is important to note that were firms to take a larger stake in the industrial properties which they hold in defense, I think they'd be able to do a lot more in regard to innovation, and I think they'd be able to focus on a lot more once they have that sorted out, particularly in regard to logistical hubs, that sort of thing, for smaller defense firms. I'll leave it there.